open a word of prayer. Lord, thank you for this day. Lord, we just pray that you will give us wisdom, discernment, patience, love, understanding, all of those things as we navigate some very difficult times. Pray that you'll keep us safe. Pray that you will keep the city of Washington safe and other cities safe as we go through a pretty important transition in the next 24 hours. So just pray that you'll watch over us. Bless us this week. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, I'm titling this one, The Storm Before the Storm. And I will say, this has been the strangest presidential transition in my lifetime. Just because he's not president yet, but everybody's running around like he is. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. I'll talk about some things going up. Then I'm going to spend a lot of time on the hostage deal. And then if we have time, we'll talk a little bit about some other things going on in the Middle East, and then some updates on Los Angeles, just because it's a very big deal. It could hurt the economy in a big way. It could also help the economy if they ever get around to figuring out how to get permits to allow building to occur in Los Angeles. I'm hearing potential damages, losses of $250 billion, probably the most damaging disaster in United States history. And I'll have some more comments about that if we have time to get to it. So the storm before the storm, if I could, somebody's helping me to try to spin this wheel a little bit, and it would be spinning like a top today. And so I chose a lot of the things on that wheel, by the way, just because these are themes in Bible prophecy. The upcoming temple, the red heifer, the bear, the ram, the goat, the winged leopard, the winged lion, the shofar, the bowls of wrath, the silver trumpets. I mean, all this stuff is important. So, and all these things are based on scriptures, and so I sort of put them there as a marker for myself. And by the way, this does not even begin to scratch the surface of all the things that will come about in Bible prophecy. But we'll be talking, some of those themes you're going to see us talk about today. And again, I will just reiterate that Daniel was told, Daniel, in chapter 12, he wanted to know what was the interpretation of the prophecies that he had been given. And he was told, Daniel, seal up the book until the time of the end. And in the time of the end, the wise will understand and instruct many. Now, it says that in chapter 11, but the wicked will never understand. So we want to be people who are wise. We're looking at these things going on. So we'll look at some of the things going on. Then we're going to turn to the hostage deal. And I'll be honest with you, there's things going on with the hostage deal as we speak. And we'll get to that in just a moment. So this week is this event. It starts tomorrow. So tomorrow's a very big day, you may have noticed. Trump is to be sworn in. Biden is supposed to leave. And there's a very big meeting at the UN tomorrow morning about Israel at the Security Council. It's starting at 10 o'clock. So it's 2 hours before Trump is sworn in. The swearing in has been moved indoors at the Capitol. And I don't know, it's supposed to be very cold there tomorrow, about 10 degrees, wind chill. That's not a good thing to have a lot of, well, to have an old man. I mean, Trump is 78 years old, let's be honest. And that's not a good place for somebody that's that old to be standing around, maybe catch a cold. Remember, we had one president who caught a cold at the inauguration, mainly because he droned on for about an hour and a half in his inauguration address. I think it was the longest inauguration address in U.S. history, and he got a cold, and 28 days later, he was gone. That was back in 1840. By the way, that was William Henry Harrison. I think he was replaced by John Tyler, am I right? Tippecanoe and Tyler too, that was the campaign slogan. By the way, I mentioned this on a podcast that I did recently. Do you know that John Tyler The president in 1841 had children when he was about 75. Okay, and then one of those children had children when he was like 75. And as of last year, Tyler's grandson was still alive. And Tyler was born in the 1790s. So imagine that guy born in the 1790s had a grandchild that was alive all this time later. He was like 97, 98 years old. I don't know if he's passed away since, but it's very interesting. So World Economic Forum this week, we'll try to cover it as much as we can. There's a lot of other things going on. Things are very tense in many, many places in the world. As usually happens when they come out with their new meeting for Davos, they always lead it off with the global risk report. Now, I don't have a lot of slides about this. I've read through it. One of the things that they're going to talk about, and usually what this does is this sets the stage for the Davos meetings. And all the big important elites and rich and government elites and that type of thing gather in Davos, pay ridiculous prices for hotels and meals and transportation to talk about things and talk about what they're going to do with us or what their plans are for us. But one of the things that's big in this report, one of the major global risks is, guess what? Misinformation, disinformation, how to control things, and how to use artificial intelligence to do that. So I just recently hosted, you can find it. By the way, YouTube and Rumble have sort of changed. Well, I don't know if they've changed the way they've done it, but I went looking for our videos on Rumble the other night, and there were none there. There were hardly any there for the last 8 or 10 months. But there's a tab. There's videos and there's live. And so if you go to our YouTube channel and you click on the live tab, you can get to the live videos we put up. We usually post the prophecy update and our sermons under both the live tab and the videos tab, just because people have trouble finding it. But somebody wrote to me and said, hey, I can't find your stuff on Rumble. And I can't find my stuff on Rumble, but it's under the live tab. They're all there. But so they're going to talk a lot about artificial intelligence. I did a prophecy roundtable about a week ago with a bunch of guys. And when we talk about this, we sit there and talk for two and a half hours. And we only begin to scratch the surface. And we have another one coming up on February the 12th, Wednesday night, February 12th at 7 p.m. So you can tune in, listen to that live, or catch it later. But there's a tremendous amount of stuff that's going on in the artificial intelligence space. I won't talk too much about it here today. Just suffice it to say that this is one of the main themes. This is actually the main theme of the Davos World Economic Forum meeting, collaboration for the intelligent age. And we've been playing videos for years here. Yuval Harari talking about hacking human beings. What are we going to do when we hack human beings? What are we going to do when there's all these people that don't have jobs? There were some developments that I was reading about in artificial intelligence and what it can be used for. Who was it? Oh, it was Goldman Sachs, big investment firm. They handle all these private placements or public offerings of stock. You know, when they're trying to get people to invest in companies, buy stock and invest in companies. And they were saying that 95 to 97% of a prospectus, when you do that in the securities world, you have to do a prospectus to tell people about the risk and that sort of thing. So you hire lawyers and lawyers go through. But they said, now 95, 96% of that work can be done by artificial intelligence. We just tell them what we want, the parameters of the deal, a little bit about the company, and so what they're doing is they're pulling in a lot of boilerplate language, but we only need this, really smart lawyers, the elite lawyers for the last 3 to 5% of a prospectus. But then the question is, okay, so now you have elite lawyers, and they're like that because they've been working on these type of documents for years and years and years, even decades. What happens when they all go away and the young lawyers haven't been trained to work on all those documents and understand how they all fit together? So there may be a problem down the road. So then this is when I often think I'm 70, and I'm kind of glad about that, given the prospects for the world. This was an interesting article in the Times of London the other day. Big tech firms now act like nation states. Now, there are some in the prophecy community to think, well, maybe these big tech companies will be part of this final beast system, some of the kings. And it's interesting. I mean, this is a secular guy. Pretty sure he probably doesn't know anything about Bible prophecy, but this is what he says. One of Britain's best-known businessmen and advocates of artificial intelligence has called on the Prime Minister to make clear whether he wants to break up big technology companies. Sir Martin Sorrell, the former boss of WPP, who promotes technology and AI as a key offering of S4 Capital, said Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the UK, must decide whether to dilute the dominant position big tech enjoys. Tinkering around the edges is never going to work. These companies are now our nation states. That's kind of an interesting statement, because who had that on their end times Bible prophecy bingo card? Tech companies as nation states and maybe part of the beast empire. I don't know. There's a lot of speculation about how that beast empire is going to look. And there's a lot of people that think this is the guy who's putting it together right now, at least with the, trying to bring in Greenland, the Panama Canal, Canada, that does look a little bit about like one of the aspects, the North American Union aspect of this Club of Rome document that's been circulating around Bible prophecy circles for a very long time. So here it is. This is The Economist. And remember, it was like 8 years ago when Emmanuel Macron was elected president of France, that they had Macron walking on water, and everybody in the Bible prophecy got, that's the guy, that's the guy, he's the one. Okay, so now the economists, they're not even messing around with walking on water now, they're walking on over the surface of the earth, and with a foreboding look. And a lot of people are like that. Now, I'm very transactional. Trump's a transactional guy. He wants to make a deal. That's sort of like what he exists to do. So Greenland, that's a big real estate deal for him in some respects. And so I'm transactional with him. There's things that I like about him. And he does have a Treasury Secretary. I don't know that I'm a fan of the guy. He used to work for George Soros. He was like his main investment guy. But he's very smart. He's been nominated for the Secretary of the Treasury. So this week was a parade of guys and women, men and women, up to the Senate for confirmation hearings. And I will say that the ones that Trump chose, by and large, did pretty well. Some were a little bit squishy, but Pam Bondi, she's the Attorney General of Florida. She was up there. I thought she did a fantastic job. Somebody made a comment. She's a very pretty lady. She's almost 60, 59. And some lady tweeted, she goes, well, I don't understand. The Senate failed because they have this beautiful woman here under oath, and they never asked her what her skincare regimen was. So she could tell the world. So, but Scott Bessent, who's the nominee for Treasury Secretary, and by the way, Janet Yellen just said this morning or yesterday, hey, by the way, Trump, you got a big problem. U.S. is going to hit the debt ceiling on Tuesday. You have one day to fix everything that we're leaving behind for you. And so I think that what you're going to see over the next couple of weeks, that as it comes out, there's a lot of landmines that have been laid. And by the way, I don't think Joe Biden knows this. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House in the U.S. Congress, did an interview with Barry Weiss at the Free Press the other day. And Mike Johnson says, I went in to see, first of all, I couldn't get in to see him. And then when I went in, they would only let me see him when like everybody in the world was in the room, like the CIA director, Kamala Harris, other people were, maybe the Attorney General, Secretary of State. They would only let me see him when everybody was in the room. But I did have a chance. I wanted to talk to him alone. And Biden said, everybody get out. I want to talk to Mike Johnson alone. And he said during that conversation, it came up that Mike Johnson said, listen, President Biden, you're destroying industry in Louisiana because you've restricted liquefied natural gas exports from our port down there. And Biden says, I didn't do that. I just said we needed to look for more gas. No, that's not what you signed. And so Mike Johnson says, I don't think he knew what he was signing, or if he was the one who was signing it. And so this is going to be a big problem going forward because, believe me, what Trump's going to be doing the next few days is signing executive orders like you wouldn't believe. He's got stacks of them to sign. Biden's putting in as many as in place. And who knows who Biden's going to pardon over the next 24 hours. I mean, this is going to be a very tumultuous 24 hours if it was just the United States transition in government. So Scott Bessent was being questioned, and they were questioning about, well, you'll see the question. The question is, we put in place this great green energy law and all this stuff, and Scott Bessent gave one of the best answers anybody could give to that, because they want to put in solar and wind, like that's going to work all the time, and that's going to replace fossil fuels. It's nonsense, and it's collapsing economies. Germany is in major trouble. The cost of electricity in Germany has doubled over the last year because they decommissioned all of their nuclear plants. Now they have to buy electricity from France, and France is charging a higher price for it. Same thing happened in the UK last week. I think I mentioned this. They came very close to running out of energy and having to start rolling blackouts in the UK. I mean, it was like a very small window. But to fill the gap that they had to get to the safety zone, they had to buy something that was like 500% more than you would normally pay for it, because they were buying it on the spot market. So here's Scott Bessent, questioned by one of the senators, and here's what he had to say.
About the legislation that was written in this room that was the biggest transformation on clean energy in American history. That is our package that basically said the tax code as it relates to energy is a broken down mess. And we basically said we're going to have a technology neutral system. The more you reduce carbon, the bigger your tax savings. Now there is a big effort in the Trump administration to reverse it. I think that's going to be bad for the economy, but it is going to be damn good for China, because we are in an arms race on clean energy with them. Are you going to be on the side of people who want to unravel this?
Senator Wyden, just so we can frame this for everyone in the room, China will build 100 new coal plants this year. There is not a clean energy race. There is an energy race. China will build 10 nuclear plants this year. That is not solar. I am in favor of more nuclear plants. And I would note that the IRA, as scored by the CBO, is wildly out of control in terms of spending on the upside.
And he's right. In fact, China's opening 100 coal-burning power plants this year with declining populations and declining birth rates. Nothing's working over there. They're collapsing economically. They're collapsing in population. Their real estate, they're in a huge financial mess. And that, by the way, I think that makes them very dangerous, more dangerous than normal, because what do collapsing big countries do that have a lot of weapons and that type of thing? They try to distract people by starting wars. And China's been making threats about that. I may have something about that here shortly. So Scott Bessent is 100% correct. By the way, they have 100 they'll open this year. They have 400 that they've gone through the permitting process to start building. Yeah, and yeah, thank you for my editor. You may recognize her in the back. I did the sermon first hour on marriage, so you can. I got my shots in then, so, as they say. But yeah, Pam is correct that they don't have scrubbers on that. They're not about clean energy or anything like that. And we're running around building solar and wind. It's okay, but it only works part of the time. I saw a big video somebody put up of a Amazon truck yard, where all the, those little vans that run around, a lot of those are electric. And they showed them all being plugged in and recharging. And they drove down to the end of this big parking lot, and what was there? A diesel generator belching away. Well, where do you think this electricity is going to come from to fill the batteries up? It's insane. So look, Trump has said like I said, there'd be transactional with him. There's some things that he does that we like. So he has gone and said, everybody who got booted out of the military because they wouldn't take the state-approved treatment will be reinstated with back pay if they want to come. So we're all on board with that. The interesting thing is, by the way, on this deportation and sanctuary city thing, so here's the front page of the Chicago Tribune on Thursday. City Council votes to affirm sanctuary city status. And Oregon is training their people about how to not obey the federal government and interfere with the federal government if they come to do what the federal government is supposed to do. They're training their employees in the state of Oregon to resist that. Chicago is doing that. But the other side of that is, I've been seeing videos and hearing stories and reading people who are saying that the immigration agents are out there picking people up already. Trump's not in office, but they're just saying we're going to go do our job that we haven't been able to do for the last 4 years. So that's what I meant when I said this is a very strange transition in that he's not. There was somebody the other day, they were blaming, you sort of saw this senator saying the Trump administration is ruining everything. They're not even in office yet. Get over yourself already. So they'll be squealing. So my understanding is Chicago is going to be one of the big targets. So I would just tell them, don't take the Dan Ryan, because that thing is always torn up and you'll never get anywhere if you're doing that. So here's the UK today. MAGA's Great Washington Takeover. And Trump has said, listen, that DEI stuff, ESG stuff, gone. And then I saw another video of like Lloyd Austin, Anthony Blinken, and other people as they were leaving their office for the last time on Friday. Everybody was standing around clapping, to which somebody said, okay, now we know who may need to leave. All the people standing around clapping for these clowns as they leave. So that's kind of interesting. Let's see here. I was going to talk about this. This was from a week ago, David Weinberg at the Jerusalem Post. And I don't remember if I covered this about strategic escalation, strategic warning, escalation ahead. You're going to see a lot of things happening over the next few weeks. That's why I called it's not the calm before the storm, it's the storm before the storm, because we're already going through it. And I just think that it's going to get a little bit more intense. So let's talk about this hostage deal. So the people at the government office sent me a link to they have a website that they've set up, and I don't have time to check it right now, where they have video feeds and that type of thing of the hostages being released. There were 3 ladies identified to be released. So this deal, and so when you look at this deal, the reaction to the deal is very interesting. So here's some like Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and they're all like, oh, we got this peace deal, we've got this ceasefire agreement. But when you start going into it, so then you look at the Arab papers, ceasefire national from the United Arab Emirates, ceasefire agreement finally reached, Arab News, we have a deal. Then you go over to the Tehran Times, Israel finally gives in to the resistance. So what's happened is that they're celebrating that Israel lost. I mean, that's how it's being treated in the Arab world. This is proof that Israel can't stand up to it. And there's some details in this deal that are very concerning. Here's the, I don't know, Arabic or Hebrew language version of the deal. Here's a summary of it. So here's phase one. This is going to unfold over the next 42 days, 6 weeks. So right now, phase one, 33 hostages released. But they will not confirm whether the ones they're releasing are alive or dead. And this is being done by Hamas to torture the families and people who are related to or love the person who's being released. So they released 3 ladies. They're supposed to do ladies and women and children, but this is going to take place over the next few weeks. So they released 3 today. I don't think any more are coming out for another week. And I don't even know, by the way, if the ladies that were released are alive. They're supposed to release the female soldiers. What's that? They're good condition? Okay, good. So, but for example, there is this family, the young children, the Beavis family, mother, the one kid was like under a year old. He just had his 2nd birthday, I think. He was like 9 months old when all this went down. He had an older brother. The husband was separately kidnapped. There are some reports that they may have been killed, and they're just waiting for the bodies, but they don't know. Nobody really knows for sure. And Hamas, they are monsters. They are doing everything they can to torture people. Even now, mentally torture people. And this is very hard for my friends in Israel. In fact, my friend Jonathan Feldstein, and I'm trying to arrange some interviews with my friends in Israel, one of whom is Jonathan Feldstein, and he tweeted the other day, where did I see that? Maybe it was under his name. No, maybe not. Oh, here it is. Here's what he put up on Facebook or Twitter. What he felt about the hostage deal. Happy, sad, hopeful, fearful, elated, pained, grateful, angry, pleased, tormented, delighted, sickened. And that everybody I've talked to in Israel and messaged with over the last few days has felt the same way. So the IDF is supposed to begin a staged withdrawal. And so yesterday, what happened? Well, there were rockets fired from Gaza into Israel. People started going back to the north. And a lot of people are concerned about this, and they're concerned about the hostages. So the other part about it, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, is that terrorists are being released. So these female hostages today are released, and I don't know how many hundred terrorists are supposed to be released. They're supposed to be released back to Gaza. I'll talk about that in a moment. So here's a picture from Ynet News, Israel Hediot, about the hostages, the ones that are still being held. There's like 98 of them, so about a third of them now. And the response is interesting, but here's the lady. She's a sister of the father of the little boys that were kidnapped. And she's wondered, she's got a 2-year-old birthday cake for her nephew. But she doesn't know if he's coming home because they won't say, because it's just psychological torture. And this is very, very hard on the people in Israel. At the same time, this is an article from Israel Hayom the other day, there were massive failures among Israeli security down in the Gaza region. And we can argue about whether they knew about it and they didn't do anything. But one of the guys who was involved in it just got promoted to another intelligence position in the IDF. Now, this does not make any sense to me. And so they still have not done their complete investigation about what happened on October 7th. Excuse me one second. I have a slide out of order here. There we go. Oh, you're going to want to see that one too. So here is this is happening. This is in Syria, in the Alawite regions of Syria. And what are they doing? Flying Turkish flags and singing, "Oh, we love Turkey. We're glad Turkey's coming back." So that's a problem. Here's another. This is a tweet. Names of all 33 hostages who were released in phase 1 of the hostage deal starting Sunday. This is going to unfold over a few weeks. And they don't know whether they're alive or dead. Some of them will be the young Israeli soldiers who were kidnapped. And it's just the torture that they're putting people through is just unbelievable. Carolyn Glick tweeted this yesterday evening. Going through the list of terrorists Israel is supposed to release. 734 terrorist murders, 2,000 terrorists in all, in exchange for 33 innocent hostages dead and alive. The names are a body blow. I remember every single attack these animals carried out. They murdered hundreds of innocent Israelis, Americans, children, mothers, fathers, young people, just because they were Jews. It needs to be said, if the U.S. wanted a deal, it could have had one that didn't require these murderers to go free. All Washington needed to do was to threaten Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey, Hamas's state sponsors, with actual sanctions for their harboring of terrorists, but no pressure whatsoever was brought to bear on Hamas or its state sponsors, only on Israel. And I can't say I don't disagree with what she said. I saw she did a program the other day, and she was like, I have trouble breathing when I think about it. Because understand, so there was a guy, in fact, I'm trying to get an interview with him. I'm sort of messaging back and forth with him, Hillel Fuld. Now, that name might ring a bell to some of you who've been listening here for a long time. Hillel Fuld is the younger brother of a guy named Ari Fuld. Ari Fuld, I don't know if I followed him or was a friend of his on Facebook. He was like bigger than life. He's just kind of this gentle giant of a man who loved Israel, had made Aliyah with his wife from the United States. And one day, about 7 years ago, his wife sent Ari down to the store at the Gush Etzion Junction. I've driven by it every time I drive by it, I think of Ari Fuld. And a young Palestinian Arab boy came up behind him at the store and stabbed him in the back, severed his aorta. Then the guy ran out of the store. Ari chased him with his severed aorta, shot him, saved the lady's life, and then he collapsed and passed away. And I remember the funeral. I remember I was on my way here to church on a Sunday morning when Avi Ablo, another guy that I know, social media guy in Israel, said, Ari's gone. He had gone down to the Western Wall, and he was weeping. He was a good friend of Ari's, and the funeral was just emotionally wrenching. His wife, his children, his daughter, because they have the funeral right away. I stayed up all night to watch it. So I hope to interview Hillel this week because he's very upset. because the guy who stabbed his brother is one of the guys being released. So my friend Jonathan Feldstein and Hillel and these people, all these friends of mine who live in Efrat, they don't have a separation barrier between the population and them. There was another family you might remember, the Fogel family, who were stabbed, throat slit in their home. Not sure which settlement they lived in. Ariel, maybe. The guy that killed them is being released. I mean, each one of these guys are murderous thugs. And so you see these statements. So, here's Tehran Times, victory after persistence of the resistance. And then they all say, and then look, here is Gaza ceasefire. Israel finally gives in to the resistance. These are the Tehran Times from today. And then you'll see we've stopped the genocide, right? And so here's what Amnesty International tweeted. The news that a ceasefire deal has been reached between Israel and Hamas will bring some glimmer of relief to Palestinian victims of Israel's genocide, but it is bitterly overdue. There is no time to waste. Now, this is what they think, that these are the action items for Amnesty International. Life-saving humanitarian aid in Gaza. By the way, in what war has it ever been required that you give aid to the people who attacked you? I knew the answer. You all know the answer. Nowhere. It's never been done before. Urgent rebuilding of medical and other essential infrastructure. So they can hide the terrorists there again? End of illegal blockade. Access to independent human rights monitors, end of the occupation and apartheid, justice and accountability for victims, ceasefire now, end Gaza genocide. That's Amnesty International. And when they talked about it in one of their recent reports, they've sort of mentioned something might have happened on October 7th. We don't really remember exactly what it was, but something might have happened. And they don't even mention it in their report. Kind of a glaring thing. By the way, if you go to Israel, go to the Hall of Remembrance, that's the genocide. And Holocaust Remembrance Day is coming up. By the way, Poland, Italy, other countries in Europe have said, we will not honor the International Criminal Court arrest warrants for Netanyahu. But my understanding is the ICC people have been meeting with the Biden people this week in D.C. Because why are they upset? Because the new Senate and Congress has said, we're not funding you guys. You're not getting any money from us in the United States. They have an annual, but they don't have hardly any cases. And they get like $200 million a year. It's a big, fat scam. And it needs to, so here, this also Tehran Times, collapse of the resistance is impossible. In Times of London today, we won't get back the same people that we lost. Israel's not going to be the same. People are stressed. There's a lot of post-traumatic stress syndrome. I talk to people over there. They have trouble sleeping. And then they get these rockets coming in almost every night in the middle of the night from the Houthis. Might be one or two, but half the country has to go to a bomb shelter because they don't know where that thing's going to land. But here is the Al-Quds newspaper from the Palestinian authority, from the Palestinian area of Israel. This guy is one of the worst terrorists ever. He is on the list to be released. Barghouti, I think is his name. Marwan Barghouti will be released in the second phase of the deal. This is terrible. So here is a tweet from Eon Levely, there are many people with fancy titles who want you to believe that these people are not legitimate military targets, or you should feel sad about their deaths. And Seth Frantzman, my friend at the Jerusalem Post, he tweeted in response to this, just so we can be clear here, this fleet of Hamas shiny new Toyota trucks were always legitimate targets, but they were left to function throughout the war because the fact is that Hamas was never as defeated and dismantled as reports seem to indicate. It was easily controlling the central camps and force Hamas was. It was running Gaza throughout the war. No attempt was made to remove it from power. I agree with what he said here. This war has not been won by Israel. No attempt was made to replace it, despite claims early in the war that Hamas is ISIS. Hamas was never treated like ISIS. And Seth would know. He was up in Mosul when they went in to clean out ISIS from Mosul in a very similar, they didn't have quite as many tunnels in Mosul, but they had very close-in fighting. And as the United States and others went in to take him out, he was there. And he said, we didn't do this. And so his question is, I think it's a legitimate question, what's going to happen as we go forward? And so this article from Israel Hayom in the lower right-hand corner. Well, the first article here on the left is editorial, Hamas is going to grow stronger. And already they've recruited Israel might have killed 20,000. They probably recruited 18,000 to replace them. And Israel's supposed to withdraw from the Philadelphia corridor. That's where all the weapons and everything came through. I don't know why that thing wasn't just completely destroyed, like they destroyed Hezbollah's bunkers, Nasrallah's bunker up in Beirut. I don't understand it. On the right is talk about how this deal came together. This is what Israel, first of all, in the lower right-hand corner, it says, hey, they had a big meeting at Mar-a-Lago. I had friends there the other morning. And what were they saying? It was Jerusalem prayer breakfast, met at Mar-a-Lago. And what were they chanting? No Palestinian state, no Palestinian state. And then that was just that afternoon, they announced this deal. And this is what Israel Hayom says. What is known is that last Saturday, Trump's closest friend, Steve Witkoff, his confidant and the one who was appointed to be the envoy for Middle East affairs, came to Israel from Qatar. It is not known whether and to what extent Netanyahu tried to convince Witkoff to allow him to reach a different agreement on much better terms after Trump becomes president regarding the hostages. The Prime Minister's office also refused to respond to reports that the meeting between the two was difficult. What is known is that Witkoff, on behalf of Trump, conveyed a sharp and tough message to Netanyahu. The president wants an agreement before the inauguration, and Netanyahu, the man who has often explained that an Israeli prime minister must know how to say no to the Americans, also fell face down and said, yes, Mr. President. Now, that's probably a center newspaper. They have some leftist and stuff there. This is a big problem. I have a tweet from Trump here someplace. He put up on Truth Social. Well, he took credit for it. I mean, let's be honest. This is a big deal. So people that I know are very upset about this. Trump put up on Truth Social that, listen, this is I don't know if he called it a big, beautiful deal. This is great. We're going to restart the Abraham Accords. We're going to have normalization with the Saudis, all of this stuff. But I'll be honest with you, almost everyone I know is pretty upset about this, particularly if the United States was involved. And we're facing potential issues ourselves. So this is Richard Kemp writing in the Telegraph in London. Many supporters of Israel condemn the Gaza ceasefire as disastrous. Prime Minister Netanyahu's opponents have set it an example of his weak leadership. Not so fast. We should not underestimate the man who ordered the pager decapitation of Hezbollah, the elimination of its chief, and even the killing of Hamas's leader in Tehran. And it's true. This is a very difficult situation to navigate. This morning, 5 members from Ben Gvir's party, my understanding, have submitted their resignation from the Knesset, which may cause the Netanyahu government to fail. They have 64 seats in their coalition, less 5. That would take them down to 59, which means they don't have enough to form a government. So Israel may be headed to elections in the midst of all this mess. Douglas Murray at the New York Post yesterday said the real deal will be Hamas is defeated. That's the one that we should be doing. And they have not been defeated yet. I mean, we love getting the hostages back and everything, but they have not been defeated. Let's see here. Okay, so here is, so I don't know how the people that went to the Jerusalem prayer breakfast the other day felt. I haven't talked to any of them yet. I just don't think it's a good look. I think we are messing around in a place we should not mess around. Anyway, so on the Israel Guys podcast the other day, they interviewed Jeremy Gempel. You might remember him. He spoke here at FBC a long time ago, 7-8 years ago, maybe. Great guy. And his partner in some of the media stuff that he does, and also in their where they're living down in Judea, the Judean Hills, Ari Abramowitz, were interviewed on the Israeli Guys. I just thought I would play you a 4-minute clip of what they had to say about the deal and how people that live there in Judea, in Samaria, are thinking about this deal.
It's a release of murderous terrorists en masse.
That's the point. That's the point, is that they're releasing terrorists in this deal, and that's the point that we're saying is disastrous.
And
why is this disastrous on that level?
And their moral ambiguity. The world is like, okay, they're releasing 33, and you're releasing however many hundreds. No, wait a second. We're talking about 33 innocent men, women, and children versus people who have slit the throats of babies in their cribs. To create that sort of moral equivalence is insane and blind and sick and evil.
So we're talking about 1,650 terrorists being released, so that the 33, that's not all the hostages, right? You just said 98 hostages are still in Gaza, and only 33 of them are going to come out. Meanwhile, the politicians are voting to release 1,650 terrorists. This is what we're saying is disastrous. Why is that disastrous, Jeremy, in your mind, to release these terrorists these are terrorists, meaning they're not just some sort of prisoner for some reason, they literally have blood on their hands.
This is a quote from Winston Churchill. You were given a choice between war and dishonor. You chose dishonor, and you will have war. And so we could shake hands with the devil himself, because that's what's happening here. And we can try to do some sort of negotiating deal. But when we release terrorists into Israel, we've seen what happens. They don't stop. They don't repent. They will be right back at the necks of Jews doing terrorism the very next day. On the contrary, they've just been emboldened to kill that many more.
Yeah.
And so
we have facts on this. I mean, Israel is not new today as a new country, but not that new. We've already had experiences with the first Intifada in 1985. There was hostages and hostage deals all the way back to then. There was prisoner releases that happened all the way back then with soldiers that were killed, or wherever it was that they had these bodies or whatever. The problems that were on the scene all the way back to then. had these deals that started going on where they would release massive amounts of prisoners of war that were murderers, right, from all whatever war it was in the first Intifada, the second Intifada, the Oslo Accords time, the 2000s where it was the Intifadas there of 2000, all of these times, and then as of recent of October 7th, all of these different times have had massive amounts of prisoner releases from Israel. And here's the thing I want everyone to be clear about. What's actually happened here. We have from those releases, that equates to about 12,000 released terrorists. That's a lot throughout the year since 85. 12,000.
You could list the whole thing from Oslo to the Tannenbaum affair to the Shalit deal.
Yeah. Each one of these that were throughout these wars. So you have 12,000 roughly released terrorists. These terrorists, and this is the point that no one knows and why this is disastrous, these terrorists committed mass crime against Israel, so much so that it took the lives of 2,750 Israelis. That's what that equates to. So when we give a deal and we're saying, okay, we want these 33 back, if we take this standard, what the math is, and it's terrible to use math when we're talking about human life, but the math is that if you release 1,650 terrorists to save 33, those terrorists you release statistically will kill another 380 Israelis.
Wow.
And that is what is blowing our mind. And like everybody's screaming, Israel across the board is screaming right now, stop, there's a better way. If you release, Sinwar himself was a released terrorist, right?
That's right,
Exactly.
in the Shalit deal. Sinwar himself. And we're
Sinwar was released in the Shalit deal back in 2011 or 2012. It's just shocking. And how did that work out, by the way? That led to October 7th. So here's another interview. This is put up by Visigoard. They did an interview with this lady talking about, how do we get what's going on? And everybody on the left and American, and we're going to have a two-state solution. We're going to have a peace deal. We're going to get this. There's going to be a Palestinian state. And everybody in Israel says, no, there won't be. That's the vast majority of the people don't believe that. But maybe, I've said this for a long time, maybe it's going to be something that's shoved down her throat. So this is Annette Wift, V24 interview, just a short minute and a half clip of what she had to say. There's a longer interview that you can find on YouTube on the Visigoard 24 channel.
Today I'm with Einat Wilf, an intellectual, a former member of the Knesset.
The tragedy of the Palestinians is that whereas other Arab countries in the region have their own separate identity, have their own history, the Palestinians, as their name suggests, have been constructed only around the negation of Zionism, only around the resistance to a Jewish state. The Palestinian demand death to Israel. They've learned to say it in words like justice and rights, but fundamentally, if you ask them, I, over 20 years, have found 3 Palestinians who are publicly willing to say that they want to live next to the Jewish state with all the implications. 3. The Palestinian flag is the new red flag. Queers for Palestine. Palestine is about climate change. Palestine is about fighting capitalism. Palestine is about indigenous movement, because it has become the new red flag of utopia.
And she's right. And Trevor Loudon has written a lot about this, talking about the red-green alliance, the red communist Marxist and the green Islamist and climate change people. They're all interrelated. They're all in it together. So Elika Laban, she's Persian by birth. She grew up mostly in the UK. She's a lawyer. We love that about her. She's a very eloquent and elegant defender of Israel. And so she tweeted us the other day. So there's a guy on the internet, on Twitter, gets millions of views, like Candace Owens gets millions of views. And then I say something about it that's negative, and I get all kinds of grief. How dare you criticize a good Christian woman like her? I'm sorry, folks. Do the math. Pay attention to what she's saying and what she's doing. So there's a guy named Ian Carroll, and you might have seen his videos. You'll see this in the clip I'm going to play of Elika Laban. You know, he always puts up something behind him, and he's like pointing to it with his hand and that type of thing. Gets millions of views, and he's an anti-Semite. So he was out last week. He was complaining about all the money that goes to AIPAC owns the Congress. And you see other people in Congress saying this. They don't know what they're talking about. It's like, of all the money that goes to Congress, it's like 0.5%. It's just like the money that might be given to Israel this year is like, I did the math, 0.06%. 0.06% of the federal budget is aid to Israel. Can we just stop with this? They own Congress. Congress has been bought by a lot of people, okay? But they never talk about that. They only talk about, oh, look what Israel contributed. So here's Elika Laban responding to Ian Carroll. This is about 8 or 9 minutes, but I think it's very good, and I want you to hear it. So here's Elika Laban.
What if I told you that everything that you've been led to believe is a lie, and I can tell you the source of the lie and the reason for the lie and who continues to spread the lie and why? If you don't know the information I'm about to share with you, which I'm going to venture to guess that you don't, your mind is about to be blown. So last week, a man named Ian Carroll put out a viral video claiming to have owned Elon Musk with facts and information. Here's the problem. There was not a single fact in what he said, and yet the video went viral. We're going to have to go through these claims individually, and then you're going to understand exactly what's going on by the end of this video. So the first claim he made was that AIPAC is a Jewish lobby group that owns 90% of Congress. This is false. Their campaign contributions of 2024 are about 0.3% of total financial contributions, and you can get that information from Open Secrets. So more importantly, why does he believe this? And where does this thinking come from? It's an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, just like all of Ian Carroll's claims that come from Soviet disinformation, or disinformatia, which was the weapon of war during the Cold War that they called the War of Ideas that we are still living in the aftermath of. There are KGB defectors of the secret police of the Soviet Union who testify to this in much greater detail, such as Yuri Bezmenov, such as Mikhail Pasepa. This is an excerpt from Pasepa. Realizing his strong arm against the US methods would no longer work, Stalin turned his thoughts to an old Russian weapon of the emotions that had so successfully been wielded by him and all the Tsars before him: anti-Semitism. Stalin decided to portray the United States as a Zionist realm owned by Jewish...
For some reason, that the audio in that is spiking. So go to Elika Laban. Her Twitter handle is Elika Laban. And you can find that video very easily. It probably would do better on your own headphones. But what she said was this whole Palestinian Arab thing never existed until 1964. It was made up by the Soviet Union. Nobody remembers that fact. And so all these people, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Jeffrey Sachs, they have fallen for propaganda. And it's so easy to document. And they may, Jeffrey Sachs knows what he says is propaganda. Or if he doesn't, he's completely shelved any moral fiber in his being. So that's something to pay attention to. Let's see, what do I have here? That's the Nagel Commission report. We don't need to talk about. Israel has all of these fronts that they're fighting, and it just keeps, to me, it just kind of seems to be growing. Let's see here. There's something I wanted to point out. There's wars and rumors of wars all over the place. China is pushing these big... here's Donald Trump's thing on the ceasefire deal. So look at what he says. This epic ceasefire deal agreement could have only happened as a result of our historic victory in November, as I signaled to the entire world that my administration would seek peace and negotiate deals. With this deal in place, we will continue promoting peace through strength throughout the region as we build upon the momentum of this ceasefire to further expand the historic Abraham Accords. This is only the beginning of great things to come for America and indeed the world. And look, we want somebody to make America strong. We all want that, but we need to understand that it comes in the context of something. And I'll be very blunt with you. The guy who pushed this deal, Steve Witkoff, very close friend of Donald Trump, owned a big hotel next to the Plaza Hotel at Central Park South. The Park Lane Hotel, got into some financial trouble with it. His partner turned out to be a fraudster, fled. He was going to lose the hotel, and Qatar came in and bailed him out. Bought the hotel for about $630 million. So he's flying back and forth to Qatar to negotiate this deal. I just don't think it's a very good look. And there are other things I'm just a little bit distressed by it. And then there was this report. Oh, here it is. China building monster barges to overrun Taiwan shores. Now, I'm not sure how this works. There are pictures of them building these things in the shipyards in China. 5 of them. And there's special design barge that can go a little bit further into the land to drop off troops and tanks and armaments and that type of thing. And so they're talking about, we're going to take over Taiwan. Now, I don't know why we can't get a missile, you understand what I'm saying, to just knock it out of the sky. I mean, I saw Elon Musk, they bring this stage of have you seen this thing? They've done it twice now. They have a rocket catcher. And I don't know if this is in Texas or Mexico or Florida. I don't know which one it is. This thing comes in at supersonic speeds. It's one of the largest objects ever put into the air. And it comes in, breaking the sound barrier and everything. And it's very complicated. Elon Musk said it's a lot harder than it looks. But they slow it down and it goes right in place into this catcher. Amazing video. So I'm just saying is if they can do that, why can't they take out a barge the Houthis send rockets into places. They're not exactly technologically adept. I don't know, but I'm not in charge, so that's obvious. Okay, so this is a big deal. So Iran and Russia, by the way, that's why I think Trump wants Greenland, because we have trouble monitoring Russian subs. They can get close to America because they come by Greenland. And so if we have a bigger base, better listening devices in Greenland, maybe we can keep track of these things. It sounds like a plot for a movie like The Hunt for Red October or something like that. But anyway, so Russia and Iran had a big meeting and signed a 20-year strategic cooperation treaty in Moscow the other day. Here's Putin and the president of Russia. Where do they get these tables? They have these giant tables. Remember that table that Putin sat at during the Charlie Vector days where it was like 80 feet long and the guy's down, you can barely see him at the other end. So here they are signing it. Ava Koularios, I don't know how you say her name. Ava Cool, that's her Twitter handle. She wrote this, she did a very good analysis, and she said, listen, this is a big deal for Russia and Iran. They have a lot of areas where they don't get along, but they're agreeing on energy, they're agreeing on nuclear facilities and that type of thing, and they're there, there they are signing the things in Moscow. So here's what she says. The Iranian media do not hide the extent of the differences between conservatives and reformists in Iran over relations with Russia. A large portion of the new president's government, Pezeshkian Government officials reject a rapprochement with Russia and prefer relations with the West, while the conservatives view the West as the enemy and believe that the rapprochement with Moscow is the natural path within the geostrategic landscape most suitable for Tehran. Khamenei seems to have been the decisive figure in this matter. He has given the green light to signing the agreement with Moscow. This has been in the works we've been talking about this for a couple of years, allowing for a return to negotiations with the West. Essentially, she says today's agreement won't bring anything new to the ground, but it does show a level of cooperation. Returning to the region, it does not seem that Tehran has redrawn a clear strategic path for its next steps. Tehran is still in a state of shock that has gripped decision makers since October 7th, 2023 attacks, while this period has witnessed mistakes and miscalculations in the face of several events and in several arenas. Hezbollah, Hamas, damaged. Hezbollah damaged. They're trying to reconstitute themselves. There were some reports this week that Iran is using flights through Turkey to replenish Hezbollah through Turkey to Beirut because they don't want to go direct because that would be too obvious, but they're still using the same planes. I'm not sure. I guess they figure we couldn't figure out. And people in Tehran are upset because they're saying, hey, wait a minute, our economy is in the tank. Inflation is out of control. We're in very, very serious straits, and you spent $50 billion in Syria and on Hezbollah. What did you get for that except embarrassed and losing? And I think there's something to be said for that. She concludes her tweet with, she has a thread on Twitter, and she says this. Iran today has experienced its worst period since the war with Saddam Hussein's regime, both internally and regionally. While Khamenei is trying to pressure even partially the achievements he has made during his leadership of the Iranian state over the past 3 decades, it seems that the regional changes are beyond his strategic patience. The decision after the first Gulf War was to avoid a direct war between Iran and any other country, and the priority for this regime has always been survival at the helm of the Iranian state. As Jonathan Spire put it, fighting till the last dead Lebanese. Or fighting to the last dead Syrian. So she says this, the scene in the Middle East today is calm, awaiting Trump. Is it the calm of the defeated or the calm before the storm? Now, I think it's the storm before the storm, but that's sort of where I got the idea for today's title. And Russia also, by the way, put this up on its UK embassy website. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the UK, went to Ukraine, and the Russian ambassador to the UK said, this is an act of war, and we're not going to let this rest. We're going to do something about it. So, let me just finish with a few comments about this. Actually, I know I'm finishing a little bit earlier than normal. I'm not ill. Okay, just I appreciate you asking that question. So this thing is everybody's got a theory about what happened. This is Pacific Palisades. Now, I do question why people are saying, friends of mine on Facebook and elsewhere, that what destroyed Pacific Palisades was a forest fire. That's not a forest. That's a neighborhood of homes. And those homes are very expensive. In fact, this is a before picture of Pacific Palisades. You can see the ocean down here at the bottom. And this is the after picture, where you can kind of see the destruction in these neighborhoods. I mean, these neighborhoods, here's a little bit better one, before and after. All those homes are gone. And by the way, if you go to Zillow and look up that area and those streets, these homes are all worth $4, $5, $6, $8, $11 million. Up here above this green area that I know how to interpret this map. That's a golf course called Riviera Country Club. They're going to have the Olympics golf thing there. And by the way, some people say, well, they burned it down so they could. No, the course has been there for 100 years. Okay, they didn't burn it down to build a golf course. I'm sorry. But up here in the, let me get my laser pointer. So up here in the upper corner, up in this area, I believe it is. So I've got it marked on the map. Oh, no, I'm sorry, it's up here. There's a guy has a house up there. This house is amazing. He bought it back in 2020 for about $80 million. It's 6 bedrooms, 18 bathrooms. It was used in some TV show. Here's a picture of what part of it looks like today. It was destroyed in the fire. And by the way, some people were thinking it's now worth about $125 million. It's a very expensive home. And so here's Malibu along the beach here. That's Pacific Coast Highway. And you can see that those houses are all gone. And it's hard to wrap your head around it because you're like, wait a minute. Those houses are like right next to a giant body of water called the Pacific Ocean. Why did they burn? They burned because there was no way. By the way, the houses burned, the ocean didn't. Because water doesn't usually burn. But there was no way to get the water. They could have designed a system, but they didn't. They didn't want to spend the money to get the water to those homes. And these fires happen all the time. I have pictures I could put up. In fact, there's one house in a neighborhood of the Palisades. It's a white house with a red roof, and it looks to be intact. And then you go to the Maui fire, and everybody says, look, there's a white house with a red roof. There must be something. It must be the same guy that they're protecting. And then I have another fire picture that I was researching, I came across, and all the houses are destroyed. And there's a white house with a red roof. Now, it's probably made of fire-resistant materials, like a clay roof and that type of thing. And it's not made of wood, dry wood. I mean, some of these houses in the Palisades are 80 years old, and dry wood burns pretty quickly. In fact, go pour gasoline on your carpet and light it. And also first go out and pour gasoline on a live tree and light it. It's not going to burn very well. But don't do it on your carpet. Don't. It's a hypothetical. We used to do these in law school. Remember, it's a hypothetical, people. You don't mean you're going to go do it. But if you did that in your house, it would catch on fire and your house would burn down. And because it was arson, your insurance company would say it's not covered. So don't do that. It'd be very silly. But they could have designed a system to get that water to there, but they didn't. And there's been massive fires in Malibu. So here's Larry Fink. He's one of the big enemies of humanity, controls trillions of dollars, is the head of BlackRock. He was interviewed on CNBC this week, or Bloomberg News. I think it was Bloomberg News, Bloomberg Television. And he grew up in LA. So you're going to listen a little bit about him and where he thinks this is going and how long it will take to rebuild LA. Here we go.
As a Los Angelino, it is horrible to watch. I mean, I used to hike the Santa Monica Mountains all the time. It was one of my pleasures of growing up, actually looking for snakes and reptiles as a kid, walking through the chaparral. And I was there during the Great Bel Air fire. So, we've always had fires in Los Angeles, but you've never seen the destruction like this. Maybe we're going to have to redefine, event risk throughout so many parts of the country. And it's going to be a big issue in America, the role of homeowners insurance. And homeowners insurance is becoming a larger and larger component for home ownership. And I think this is going to be an issue for government going forward. And I think this is going to be one of the bigger issues that we're going to have to be tackling over the next 4 years. But when you have whole neighborhoods destroyed and you have infrastructure and schools and supermarkets destroyed, this is not a 1-year fix. This is going to be 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 years of fixing.
So he's right. It's going to be a long time before these neighborhoods come back. I mean, it's a massive problem. I've seen cost estimates now. The average house price in the Palisades was about $4 million. That's the average. Shopping centers destroyed, schools destroyed, churches destroyed. But then you'll see a house standing on its own together. I saw an interview with, his name's Josh Altman. He's on that $1 Million Listing reality TV show. I like that because it's kind of, I don't know how to say this. It's kind of an upscale version of the Springer Show. You watch it and you feel a lot better about yourself, morally superior. But he was interviewed, and that's his realty specialty. And he said, I thought people were going to come back. He said, after talking to them over the last week, less than 50% of the people will come back to the Palisades. A lot of them are uninsured. They're very wealthy. They're older. Some of the people are in their 60s, 70s. They're saying, I've evacuated for the last time. This happens all the time in Southern California. By the way, that last house I was referring to, the White House with the red roof, Laguna Beach, 1993. Exact same fire pattern and everything, 440 homes destroyed. This one's, we don't know how many people were killed in this. You can see from the satellite, Riviera Country Club and Brentwood Country Club are nice and green. But Altman was saying, listen, who's going to come back? He said it's going to take at least 5 years, way beyond the Olympics, to rebuild anything in the Palisades. You got to get permits, the Coastal Commission, all of this stuff. It's a nightmare. And you want to be the first house to be rebuilt and it gets done and you move in. And then what do you live in? A construction zone for the next 10 years. Even wealthy people don't want to do that. So I don't know what's going to happen, but he just said it's going to take, you heard Larry Fink, and he controls trillions of dollars. He's saying it's going to take maybe a decade for this to come back, if it does then. It's a big problem. I'm seeing damage estimates of $250 billion between the Palisades and over in Altadena near Pasadena. Whole neighborhoods destroyed. And then people have lost everything that they own. So we should have some sympathy for them. And there are a lot of theories out there about why it happened. And just go look, and they're not consistent, by the way. They're at odds with each other. So the celebrities did it to themselves. One theory is, you've heard of P. Diddy. He burned it down. He destroyed his own home to burn the evidence that shows that he was guilty. Now, let me tell you, I've done criminal cases. There was a massive raid on his home a year ago, back in March of 2024. They took truckloads of stuff out of his house. He doesn't live in the Palisades. He lives in Holmby Hills, across the 405, a few miles away, in a $60 million home, but that they already have the evidence from his home. Okay, so I think the house Hunter Biden was renting, it burned down too. So everybody says he burned it down, and his expensive art got burned too. So there is what a loss for humanity, right? So listen, pray for those people out there. It's a good time for people to help minister to them. Because even wealthy people, imagine you've lost everything that you've ever owned. All your memories, all this stuff. It's devastating. And then do you want to, you're going to move your kids down to Orange County, Newport Beach for 5 years, and then you're going to, pull them out of the schools that they've started to like down in Orange County, and you're going to come back to the Palisades? I don't know that, I'm an old guy. I don't know if I'll ever see it come back to what it was. Beautiful neighborhood. I've driven through there a number of times. But it's part of the storm before the storm, because I think there's going to be some things. So would highly recommend you be very situationally aware over the next couple of months. Pay attention to your surroundings. because I've heard a lot of stories about people have big events planned to make a statement, and I don't know whether those are true or not. But it certainly is a time for everybody to get prepared mentally and physically for some difficult times, as the storm before the storm may turn into the real storm. So let's pray, and let's go. Lord, pray that Lord, you pray that you would bless these people in California and elsewhere that are just devastated from these fires, that will maybe have the opportunities to share the gospel with these people, to reach out to people who are hurting, whatever we can do to help. We also pray for the situation in Israel, Lord, that you would ultimately, we want peace for that region. We know how that comes about, Lord. We just pray that you would help us to be aware of how these things are unfolding and how these fit into your perfect plan for not only the region, but the world. We pray that you'll bless us this week, give us opportunities to share the gospel with those around us. In Jesus' name, amen.